I'd like to call the June 15th Board of Commissioners meeting to order. The first order of business is the invocation by our County Manager, Ms. Sharon Russell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity to come before you and conduct the business of Onslow County. Please bless all of those who have gathered here this evening. Heavenly Father, we thank you for your guidance and protection during these difficult times. Please help us to serve others with grace and understanding. Please guide our 2020 high school graduates and college graduates. Please be with our military and our first responders who serve our community and our nation with tremendous courage. May all we do this day bring you honor and glory. Now, with deep respect and reverence for the faiths, beliefs, and traditions of those gathered here tonight, hear us in a moment of silence. Amen.
And I'd like to call a meeting to order, and our next order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance by Assistant County Manager, Mr. Ben Warren.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to thank everybody for coming. I'd like to acknowledge Sheriff Hans Miller, our Sheriff of Onslow County. I think that's all the elected officials that I can see. If I missed anyone, I'm sorry. We ask all in attendance to please set your cell phones to silent or vibrate mode. The board offers the public one opportunity to speak during the meeting. Comments during the public comment period should be limited to 5 minutes and may be on any issue upon which the Board of Commissioners has control. Citizen speakers will be acknowledged in the order in which they signed up to speak and will address all comments to the board as a whole and not one individual commissioner. Speakers will address the board from the speaker's podium at the front of the room and will begin their remarks by stating their name and their address. Discussion between speakers and members of the audience will not be allowed. Public comment is not intended to require the board to answer any impromptu questions. Speakers are expected to be civil in their language and presentation. Any comments where the primary purpose is to promote a business or candidacy shall not be allowed. In accordance with the board's adopted rules and procedures, commissioners shall reserve responses, if any, for the commissioner's comment period that's on the agenda. So if we have any comments about any of the speakers, we'll do it at the end of the meeting. So we won't be able to respond after each speaker. Just want to make that clear. I would entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Motion carries. Items on the consent agenda. Is there any item on the consent agenda that any of the commissioners would like to have removed for later discussion? Hearing none.
Motion to approve.
Have a motion to approve. Hear a second.
Second.
All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. We're already at the public comment section. I will now refer this to County Manager Ms. Russell to tell us about public comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. This evening, we have 5 individuals who have signed up for our public comment period. This is our only public comment period tonight. Citizens have an opportunity to address the board for no more than 5 minutes per comment on any issue upon which the Board of Commissioners has control. In accordance with the board's rules of procedure, the commissioners shall reserve responses, if any, for the commissioner's comment period on the agenda. We ask citizens that if you run out of time, to please step away from the podium and reach out to our office after the meeting, and we can arrange time to speak with you further about any issue. As I call you to the podium, please state your name and your address, and we remind you you have 5 minutes. Our first speaker tonight is Mr. Stephen DeLong of 3155 Richlands Highway.
Well, for some of you, this is a repeat of something that's happened before. My name is Stephen DeLong. I live at 3155 Richlands Highway. A lot of you know me as someone that's been working on sidewalks issues. My comment for right now is due to the COVID-19 pandemic, I'm formally requesting that the home health and hospice cell be tabled for 2 years. I also formally request that an advisory board for home health and hospice be put together, comprising of different agencies and clients, as well as a commissioner. During that 2-year period of time, that advertisement campaign be done, and also work on the employment vetting, because 30 days is too long. A lot of employees will not, a lot of people that want to be employed by the county can't wait 30 days for that. The Onslow Home Health and Hospice, I've been injured since 11/28/2004. At that time, I was an employee of the county. The home health and hospice has helped me as an individual several times over the period of 15 years. I also know that there's been issues where during the hurricanes, some things have been put aside for whatever reason, not allowing different things to occur, which I'd like to comment a little bit more on that probably when the actual home health and hospice part comes up, if you allow me to. I think this is very important for the county. Yes, by the numbers, looks like there's been a considerable amount of money lost. I formally request that there be an audit be done within that 2-year period to be sure that you are selling it for the right reasons. The employees that have been there and stayed there have been there. Like, for instance, Floyd, I know for a fact there's one CNA that worked her tail off for 8 weeks by herself. And now the employment, as far as the status, and a lot of workers have been brought up to par now to where there's no reason why Onslow County should be losing any money at all. I have spoken with someone who has actually run a home health and hospice and explained to them the things that have been going on and that they know of personally. And there's no reason in the world why our home health and hospice can't be a viable thing for Onslow County. I'm a very firm believer in keeping our money in Onslow County. If you sell to another entity or another company, those monies will not stay here. They go to a corporate office outside the county. Yes, they have employees within the county, but the actual I can't get the word out, overflow of funds are going to go to those agencies outside of the county and not stay within the county. I just wish that if you please would take this in consideration about the 2-year moratorium, so to speak, another way to put it, and really investigate on why Onslow Home Health and Hospice is not viable. It has been viable in the past. It has paid for a dog pound that we have that we here in Onslow County. It's helped pay for renovations on the excuse me, I'm having a hard time getting some stuff out. On the health department, paid for a lot of renovations on the old health department at that time. So you can't tell me that it's all the, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. DeLong.
Thank you so much, Mr. DeLong. Our next speaker tonight is Mr. Owen Andrews of New Bern, North Carolina.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Owen Andrews. I am the owner and president of Printellect in New Bern, North Carolina, your current elections vendor. We represent Election Systems and Software, who has been your vendor for 14 years with the current voting equipment. I'm here tonight, it's kind of hard not to promote your business, but I'll do the best I can. I'm here tonight just to express some concerns about several things. I've sent some information out, I think, through County Manager Russell, and hopefully you've got that and had, I know your agenda's huge tonight, 242 pages, but hopefully you got a chance to look at some of it. Our pricing, our service, I think, has been exemplary here in Onslow County, not only for the last 14 years with ES&S, but my family and our company goes back to 1942 and printed your paper ballots starting in 1942 for the whole state. So I'm fifth generation family-owned local business. We employ 52 North Carolina citizens. Most of those are in New Bern, some are in Raleigh, and we're here to give you some facts about why we would like to be reconsidered by the Board of Elections and by the commissioners. The first one is our pricing, our lowest pricing is less than $100,000 to upgrade the current equipment you have to the newest digital scanners. That would require you to keep your disabled devices, which you already own, called the AutoMark. In that scenario, our pricing is $98,000. The current pricing to replace the system through Ms. Russell's office looks to be $390,000 with our other competitor in the state. You have two certified vendors in the state, Election Systems and Software and Hart InterCivic. Our second lowest proposal is $152,000, and our most expensive proposal, which would replace all of your equipment, give you new software, which you have already paid for by paying your licensing all these years, and give you a healthy trade-in on the existing equipment that you have, because we'd like to have it back for parts in other counties, is $242,000. So when you look at $390 versus less than $100, or in the worst case scenario, $242,000, we can't really understand why your Board of Elections would not even give us a chance to demo when they invited you and two other competitors here to Jacksonville to demonstrate. We're located in New Bern and your incumbent vendor and have been for years and didn't even get invited to do that. So we're a little concerned about what we did wrong. I've talked with the Director of Elections. He seems to be pleased with what we've done in the past, at least for as long as he's been here. The prior director, Rose Whitehurst, submitted two very favorable surveys after two large elections. We have no calls or no record of having done anything wrong. So I'm here to ask the question, why are we being excluded since we're your incumbent and have better pricing and obviously very good service? The other thing I would mention to you is that the equipment, the Elections Assistance Commission certifies all the equipment and issues the standards in the United States. Those standards are changing at the end of this year, which will bring changes in equipment the vendors will implement and start building new equipment with security measures, et cetera. And it might not be a great time for you to do anything other than wait. You're in the middle of a pandemic. You've got to train poll workers. A lot of them are older. You've got to train your staff. You're right before a presidential election, and to be implementing a new system right now, quite frankly, seems a little strange to us, and not many other counties are doing that I'm aware of. None of our counties are doing it, and we have 95 in the state and a lot in Virginia. So at the end of the day, I would just say you've got a lot of things to consider. Vote by mail is also an option. If that happens down the road and it's happening in states around us, then the equipment that you have in precinct is not going to be necessary anymore. Voting by mail requires high-speed tabulation equipment in a central location. So they're changing the standards. You're in the middle of a pandemic. You have a much better price with us. You have a local in-state vendor who's serviced you forever, and our pricing's better. So just wanted to, I generally don't do this. When a county decides to go with a vendor, we usually have an opportunity to show our equipment and wares, and then if we lose, we tuck our tails and go away. It's the first time I've spoken to a county commission in my 30 years. I'm 35 minutes from here in New Bern. That's where our home office is. No one can service you better. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Andrews. Our next speaker is Mr. John Moore of 123 Ash Street.
One correction, it's 113 Ash Street. I own the whole block, but anyway. This is going to be a little different. If I used my 5 minutes, it would be me talking too much. So I'm just going to say what's on my heart, and I'm going to get it out and hopefully not be too emotional. I titled it Gratitude, and I mean exactly that. And I can look at each and every one of you up there, and I can say that I mean just exactly that. Some of you a little longer than some of the others. Paul Buchanan knew me when I was a young man, as did Commissioner Bright. I even had hair back then. You had dark hair. We've changed. I've watched Robin when he was one of the top investigators with the NIS in this region, and I have seen him raise his family, and you did a good job. I watched you turn Sneed's Ferry around. I mean, there's been so much over the years. But I cannot sit silent when I see the things I have seen by so many. For 24 years, I've been a part of this county now. It started as a volunteer coming down from D.C. and doing some forensic sketches for Billy Woodward. It started with me riding on top of a fire truck as a cartoonist for the community. I've been there at almost every national night out. I've been there at almost every hard time we've had. I've cried at the funerals of people that I served with, and I've uplifted the military community many times. And as Paul Buchanan and I and Commissioner Bright, even Robin Knapp know, for many years we were the only event for the veterans in this county. I love this county. I have for the half of my life that I've spent here full-time. I've served with some pretty awesome people like Mac Whitney, Alonzo Gooding, Captain Jerry Scantlin, and of course, the one we all remember right now, Deputy Steve Bain. A lot of people that have been making all those comments don't know those people. They don't know the legacy of this county and what all we've come from and how much we've overcome. Every life in this county matters, and we've done our best to be fair to everybody. There are things that we will change and we will learn, and some of them we have to. I've seen some pretty painful videos in the last few months, and they hurt. But maybe we can be a place to send out a message rather than receive one. So to all of you who did so much, who helped in so many different situations, Paul, I still remember that family that was over there on the, what's the name of that street? Anyway, there was that one family where the lady had the 3 kids. We helped her get into that home. Commissioner, you remember when we had that homicide that you helped with. You remember the murder of that young Marine, and we had to search 2 countries to catch her killer. You have also known that from day one, I've served with some pretty awesome people. I've seen some pretty awesome things. And I am one, and I think I can say for most of the people I've worked with all these years, we don't see shades. We see character. We see people. And that is why I have loved working with all of you all this time. And to one in particular, I would like to say, happy birthday, Commissioner. And thank you for everything you've taught me out there in Hubert. It has been a blessing to know you and to know Paul. And I did it, I'm done, and there's time left on the clock. God bless you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Our next speaker is Mr. Jeff Ogden of 203 Knoll Way.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Ogden. I've moved here in 2007 from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and I've been under the care of Onslow County Home Health and Hospice. I would like to urge y'all to please keep it open. It's far better than any other agency I've ever had. When you privatize, care goes down. That's a fact. Onslow County has one of the highest ratings for patient care that I've ever known. I think it's kind of sneaky how they decided to shut it down without letting anybody know it was even up for sale. You're doing patients an injustice. I don't even know if patients will meet the criteria of a private company, not to mention, can they afford the copays? I'm proud to say I'm from Onslow County. I don't even call Baton Rouge my home anymore. And I just think it's a shame that they're doing this. Everything about this county is wonderful. Sheriff's Department, best I've ever seen. City Police, excellent. The care I've gotten, on 2 occasions, they've saved my life, literally. The CNAs and nurses. I'd just like y'all to please consider that. And thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Ogden. Our final speaker tonight in public comment is Mr. Chris Teleska of 7021 Turbot Way.
Tanbark Way, Raleigh, North Carolina. How are you? Wake County also. You're probably wondering what I'm doing down here. I'm the founder of the Wake Coalition for Verified Voting. I've also worked with the North Carolina Coalition. Can I take this thing off? There you go. Worked with the North Carolina Coalition for Verified Voting since 2004. I'm here in Onslow County today because the experience that they had in Carteret County in 2004 with their machine choices and settings demonstrates that choices made in any one county can affect the public confidence in elections in all 100 counties. I'm curious as to why your county, which has been using ES and SM100s and AutoMark voting equipment that we used to use in Wake County, wants to replace the AutoMark, vastly preferred by disabled voters like myself, I have low vision issues, with another machine that has some pretty flimsy looking accessories. I was also curious about what it would cost, and that was before the pandemic, so I asked the County Board of Elections to get some information, and they pretty much stonewalled me. Wasn't really happy with that, so I contacted Ms. Russell, and she sent me some information that was public, in the 242 pages here today. And I had some interesting questions about that. I live in Wake County. We got 700,000 voters. We just spent about $1.8 million, I think $1.3 million with a rebate on exchanging our old scanners for our new ones. We got a rebate. We got a $300,000 rebate on that. Wake County has 206 precincts, a whole bunch of early voting sites, 270 scanners. You guys have 25 precincts, and you got a special discount of half what we got in Wake County. And I'd like to know how that happened. I can't get an answer about it. Also, got some other questions. Where will Onslow County get their Hart Intercivic ballots printed that will be hand-marked by voters? What is the cost of those ballots? Has Hart Intercivic opened an office in our state as required by state law? Where is that office, and how close is that office to Onslow County? How will you be serviced by this company? The Verity system for ADA voters includes a touchscreen ballot marking device. I'm not a big fan of touchscreens. And a ballot on demand printer. What is the cost, total cost of that ballot, including the cost to sanitize all the machines versus using pre-printed ballots for the automarks currently in use? And what is the proposed cost per registered voter of sticking with the current ES&S M100 automark system versus the newer DS200 and automark system versus the Hart InterCivic Verity system? Don't know that, can't get the information about it. Anyway, all this information will be in greater detail in the written stuff that I gave you. So you're one of the last counties to approve voting equipment. Did you just hear what happened in Georgia recently? They went to a whole new system statewide. They touchscreen machines that look like a kiosk in McDonald's, and they had to wipe those things down after each and every voter. They had people try to apply for absentee ballots that could not get absentee ballots, so they had to show up and vote on these touchscreens. They had long lines for that. Why would you want to spend, $300-some thousand to buy equipment that you can't even use because people are going to be trying to do absentee by mail? You got some options. One is you can stick with your M100 scanners and automarks. You could go with the upgraded ES&S stuff, or you could go with the Hart InterCivic equipment. But if you decided you wanted to do anything other than what the Board of Elections wants you to do, you'd have to vote this thing down tonight. And you can do that, and I'll tell you why I know that. Because that's what we had Wake County do back in 2006. Our Board of Elections wanted to go with those touchscreen DRE machines for early voting. We didn't like that. So we asked our county commissioners to vote that down. They voted it down 7-0. What happens then? Well, your county Board of Elections goes and they're gonna probably pick another choice. Might be to stick with the ES&S equipment, I don't know. But then they gotta come back and ask you again. So given that you've already got all your equipment you own it, it's already paid for. We got a pandemic, you don't know how that's gonna affect your tax revenues. Why not vote this thing down tonight, stick with what you got, and maybe in a year or two from now, you can reevaluate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Teleska. Mr. Chairman, that's all tonight for our public comment period.
Okay, thank you. Item 7 is, item 4 is proclamations, and I think our county manager will lead us in that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Tonight we have 2 proclamations. The first one is for National Parks and Recreation Month. I'm going to read this into the record, and then we're going to have the representatives from our wonderful Onslow County Parks and Recreation staff to come forward to accept the proclamation. Our chairman has requested that Commissioner Shanahan present the proclamation. State of North Carolina, County of Onslow, proclamation, National Parks and Recreation Month. Whereas parks and recreation programs are an integral part of communities throughout this country, including Onslow County, and whereas parks and recreation programs are vitally important to establishing and maintaining the quality of life in our communities, ensuring the health of all citizens, and contributing to the economic and environmental well-being of our community and region. And whereas parks and recreation programs build healthy, active communities that aid in the prevention of chronic disease, provide therapeutic recreation services for those who are mentally or physically disabled, and also improve the mental and emotional health of all citizens. And whereas parks and recreation programs increase a community's economic prosperity through increased property values, expansion of the local tax base, increased tourism, the attraction and retention of businesses, and crime reduction. And whereas Onslow County Parks and Recreation offers beach access sites, bicycle routes, paddle trails, parks, youth athletics, summer day camps, and instructional classes, to name just a few resources. And whereas Onslow County Parks and Natural Recreation areas ensure the ecological beauty of our community and provide a place for children and adults to connect with nature and recreate outdoors. Now therefore be it proclaimed, the Board of Commissioners acknowledge that July is National Parks and Recreation Month in Onslow County and recognize the benefits derived from parks and recreation resources in our community. Presented this the 15th day of June 2020 by the Onslow County Board of Commissioners.
So I'm happy to present this proclamation to Parks and Rec. Prior to joining the Board of Commissioners, I was on the Parks and Recreation Citizen Advisory Committee and got to know these guys and all the great work they do for Onslow County, and really enjoyed that experience, and they do a lot. Now, I'll say when your mission as a department is to get people out of their homes and bring them together, this is a pretty challenging time for fulfilling that mission. But I will say this department has done an incredible job in adapting to what's happening around us and making sure that they can continue to serve the people of Onslow County. I'd love for Janice to tell you guys a little bit about some of the things that they're doing.
I would love to. We are delighted to serve the community of Onslow. I do want to recognize the people that did show up, though. David Washington is our park superintendent on the inn. Joel Ellis is an intern this summer from Northern Arizona. Tim Johnson is park operations supervisor. Tyresa Brown is an intern from UCG, right? Okay, and Jason McCrae is our athletics supervisor. So they all do, we do a lot for the community. We have tried very hard to stay open with the parks during all of this time so people can come out. You gotta stay spaced apart. But we've been open with the trails, beaches have been back open, and we just opened day camp today. So we're doing everything that we can to serve the community and make sure that people have healthy places to go and to exercise and to be with nature, meditate, whatever it is that you feel that you should do, come on out and join us. And it wouldn't happen without all the people behind the scenes and all of these folks. So thank you. And all of you folks. Wow, I'm so sorry. Thank you so much for all your support. Kind of caught me off guard. I wasn't going to talk at all. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Our second proclamation is the National Mosquito Control Awareness Week 2020. And representatives from Onslow County Mosquito and Vector Control will be accepting the proclamation. The chairman has requested that Commissioner Knapp present the proclamation, and I will read it into the record. State of North Carolina, County of Onslow Proclamation, National Mosquito Control Awareness Week 2020. Whereas mosquito-borne diseases, including malaria, yellow fever, West Nile virus, Zika virus, among others, have been a source of human and animal suffering, illness, and death in the United States worldwide. And whereas it is important to encourage effective and environmentally safe mosquito control activities, and it is fitting to facilitate communication and education among North Carolina's mosquito control professionals to improve the effectiveness of mosquito control operations in the state. And whereas Onslow County Mosquito and Vector Control is dedicated to providing leadership, information, and educational leading to the enhancement of public health and quality of life through the suppression of mosquitoes. And whereas the public's awareness of the various mosquito control strategies will motivate citizens to eliminate standing water on their properties, and whereas Onslow County cares about public health and the safety and quality of life for all its citizens. Now therefore be it proclaimed that the Onslow County Board of Commissioners acknowledges June 1st through June 27th, National Mosquito Control Awareness Week in Onslow County, presented this the 15th day of June 2020 by the Onslow County Board of Commissioners.
We're up here again, Tony. I think this is pretty good. This is Tony Paget, for some of you who don't know him, and this guy, he's a jack of all trades. And the functions that they do for mosquito control is greatly appreciated. I mean, I thought mosquitoes were big in North Florida, where I'm from, until I moved to North Carolina in 1990. They're as big as I am. That kind of scares me sometimes. But I see them going through my neighborhoods and through the county, and I do appreciate that because they do a lot of things to reduce the risk of spreading diseases like West Nile virus and other things of that sort. And brings us awareness too with standing water. I mean, we've gotten a lot of rain lately, and the heat picks up. We have standing water, which is the breeding ground for mosquitoes. And if it wasn't for people like Tony and his group, we'd have a big, big problem. And I just want to say congratulations, Tony. You're always at the top, always doing the best you can for the county, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Absolutely.
I'd like to say a few words. Folks, I would like to let you know that, and Mr. DeLong knows, he calls us, and we're glad of that. But this service would not be provided if it wasn't for this Board of Commissioners. And, you know, we get calls and they say, how much do we owe you? Well, you don't owe us anything because you pay for it through your tax dollars. This Board of Commissioners really cares about the betterment and the lives of the people that lives in this county. And they show it. They have put the equipment we needed and done it very well. We have a lot of beekeepers here. They invested in equipment that we saved those beehives. We got equipment that it starts alerting and cuts our machines down so we don't destroy the bees. Very important to this county. Folks, you get a big bang for the buck here, and it wouldn't happen without this Board of Commissioners. Y'all do a great job. Our administration does a great job. And you as the citizens do a great job because you call us. We're averaged about 50 calls a day right now. Last year, we sprayed 1,550 calls. During Florence, it was so bad that people started driving to the office because they said we took the phone off the hook, but that was during a storm. So we didn't, and they are big. And y'all done this at the right time. Look at the rain we got. They hatch every 7 days. So just to let you know, we do care. This board cares. Our administration cares. And we thank you so much for letting us serve you because it is a service that would not happen. There is counties that don't have this, and it's sad for them. And we contract, this board has let us contract with Jones County. They pay us to try to help them reduce the costs. And a lot of people don't realize that. They've got big shoes to fill, and it's hard. But I do thank you so much. Just to let you know, the city of Jacksonville has their own mosquito spray, as well as North Topsail and Holly Ridge. The rest of the county, we spray, and boy, they keep us busy, and rightly so. So thank you very much, and the mosquitoes are big. A lady called today, said they were big as a helicopter. So I told her we'd do the best we can. We got a cannon now. They give us a cannon. I said, we'll bring it right out. So, but thank you so much, and thank this Board of Commissioners. We greatly appreciate it, and administration. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Russell, I'm on item 5 is a public hearing, and I will turn that particular agenda item over to you.
Thank you so much, Mr.
Nation.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. We do have one public hearing tonight. This is our public hearing on the resolution of intent to sell home health and hospice. First, I will call on Ms. Sherry Slater, Assistant County Manager, to provide our staff background and recommendation.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. This evening we're before you to discuss the potential sale of home health and hospice. For about the last 40 years, Onslow County has provided home health and hospice services here in our community. At the time that the county began performing that service, it was like many other government functions. The county stepped up to fill a need and a void in the community. Over the last 40 years, there have been many more companies that have come into the community to provide that service. In Onslow County now, there are about 10 companies that provide one or the other and some both of home health and or hospice services. So there are other agencies that provide that service. Some are for profit, some are not for profit, and they are all in our community and serving the people, the same citizens that we serve. In the last several years, at the time that we began serving the county with home health and hospice, there were 75 of the 100 counties that had a county-owned and operated home health and hospice agency. So 75 out of 100 health departments had such an agency as we have today. Currently, there are 6 left that are part of county operations. The primary reason for that across the state is that the funding structure for home health and hospice has changed over the years, and the way that those services are reimbursed has definitely cut back on the profit and has made it much more difficult for government entities to continue to be successful in that business. One of the primary reasons is that our structure is not set up to be terribly flexible in terms of staff time and the way that we have to purchase things under our purchasing laws. We have to do bidding processes and things of that nature. All of those things are very cumbersome when it comes to the fluidity that you really need to have to make a home health and hospice agency successful. They're very good things. When you're tasked with spending taxpayer dollars, you want to be as careful as you can and as judicious and make sure that we're following all the rules. So following those purchasing laws, of course, we have to, but they're also a really good idea. It gives us a lot of structure and a lot of safety and oversight of the taxpayer dollars, but it is not something that makes it terribly easy to run the business of home health and hospice. Home health and hospice services are billed through several different places. You can bill for them through a Medicaid billing, through Medicare billing. Private insurances will also pay for home health and hospice services. And again, as those pay structures for those different entities have changed, it's made it more and more difficult for us to continue to run this program in a way that does not cost the taxpayers of Onslow County additional dollars. You know, and our citizens know, that Medicaid and Medicare dollars in particular are taxpayer dollars. In most organizations, those dollars are enough to run the program and serve the citizen, and in addition to the company making some money. For Onslow County, it has been, 2017 is the last time Onslow County was able to turn a profit with home health and hospice. Prior to that, it was only profitable for a few years, and I'd like to give you just a little bit of chronology for that. In 2006, the commissioners, and this was before my time in this role, so I'm speaking from sitting in the audience and watching it happen. The manager at that time brought this to the commissioners, talked about the fact that the program had been losing a significant amount of money in the hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. The commissioners at that time decided not to pursue the sale of home health and hospice and to try to continue to work to make it profitable. That continued to be a struggle for several years until the commissioners made the decision in 2009 that the program would move to another department in the county in an effort to continue to provide the service and to do it better, to do a better job of it, and to not lose taxpayer dollars. The program did, again, turn a profit for just a little while, but again, as those pay structures have continued to develop, we have not been able to turn a profit since 2017 in those programs, and we want to have this service that you've heard some folks speak about today, very valuable service. We want to make sure it stays in our community, and so we want to give it the best chance to stay in our community. The RFP that has gone out does speak to some very specific requirements for a potential buyer. Those requirements are in statute, and for a county or municipal government to sell a home health and hospice agency, there's a statute that governs exactly how we'll do it, including the announcements that have been made and the timeliness of those announcements. So we're actually following statute with both the resolution that you passed on the May 18th agenda, with this public hearing, and as we've taken the steps through this process, we've been following a statutory requirement for those steps that we've taken. One of the things that we wanted to point out in that process is that any potential buyer would be required to outline their plan for indigent care. They are required to take a certain amount of indigent care. They're required to commit to having an office presence in Onslow County. Your license or your certificate of need, which is what we would actually be selling, is specific to this community. And there's a geographic area that it has to cover, and it's not valid outside that geographic area. So to suggest that it would go somewhere else, that's not how this works. This CON, Certificate of Need, is for Onslow County. It does include some surrounding areas because it's not specific to the borders of the county, but it starts in Onslow County, and that is where the center of the geographic area spreads out from. For home health and hospice in North Carolina, all agencies are licensed through the Division of Health Service Regulations, so they all have to have the same licensing and meet the same requirements. If they accept Medicaid or Medicare, they must follow the Medicare conditions of participation. Those are the things that ensure that we provide good service. Now, certainly you can feel like you get better customer service from one organization or another, but the level of service is regulated for all home health and hospice agencies in North Carolina. Again, especially if they accept Medicaid or Medicare, and staff would not recommend a buyer who didn't serve Medicaid and Medicare clients, patients, because that would not be the need that our community has. So the patients would continue to be served, whether they were Medicaid, Medicare, private insurance, and indigent patients would be covered under this plan as well. With regard to what those co-payments might be, I would say that co-payments are designed by the insurer, so Medicaid, Medicare, or your private insurance determines what your copay is. Onslow County Home Health and Hospice does not determine your copay. That comes through your insurance company. So that should be the same wherever you go. We have some folks that are experts in this that are helping us. They wanted me to share with you tonight that thus far they've had 14 requests for the proposal. So we expect to have some good options to bring back and discuss with you. But again, all of those proposals have to include things like their plan for indigent care, their plan for how they would, where their office would be in Onslow County, how they would continue to serve our community and meet all the same needs that we've met up to this point. So I am going to finish my report, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you have at that point in the hearing.
Thank you so much, Ms. Slater. At this time, I will open the public hearing on the resolution of intent to sell home health and hospice. Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, we have 3 individuals signed up for tonight's public hearing. Our first speaker is Mr. Stephen DeLong of 3155. And I can't read the address, but please join us, Mr. DeLong, and state your name and address again for us.
My name is Stephen DeLong, 3155 Richlands Highway, right next door to Hicks Motors. Gentlemen, I know you have a big task ahead of you on making a decision, but as I stated previously, please consider my formal requests, because this is a very important decision for all of us, especially those that you serve out in this county. I know as far as sometimes where the money hasn't been coming in properly and stuff, I know this for a fact that there's been a request made for shoot, I'm sorry, let me go a different direction here. This is very, very, very important. That's the bottom line. I wish I had more to say on it. Ms. Slater has a lot of good points, but the heart and soul are the employees that run it. Please ask for their opinions. Ask for the immediate supervisor's opinion, not the upper echelon, but you personally ask for their opinions and how this could still be viable and should have been viable all this time. that's all I have at this time. But thank you very much for your consideration. And there again, like I said, this is not something to be taken lightly.
Thank you so much, Mr. DeLong. Our next speaker for the public hearing is Ms. Charlotte Fisher. Please approach and say your name and address.
Good evening. I'm Charlotte Fisher, 15 Bosco Drive here in Jacksonville, and just wanted to comment on the sale of home health and hospice. As you're thinking of selling the hospice agency, I would just like to say that I would hope you would consider keeping it in the nonprofit world. Our family has had to place 2 members of our family in hospice care. My grandmother several years ago, my stepfather just 2 years ago, both following long illnesses. And as you know, anyone facing a hospice situation is dealing with many unknowns. How long will you need it? What types of care will you need as things progress? And in our case, we chose a nonprofit. It was actually Lower Cape Fear Hospice, now Life Care, because we knew that they wouldn't turn us away regardless of what we needed. We also chose them because of the focus and the involvement of the community. We really appreciated the active involvement of the local community in the hospice, local musicians that came to play, organizations that donated meals and flowers, pillowcases made by volunteers. These were very comforting personal touches that really made families and patients feel supported and not alone. And I'm just here to say that I think this nonprofit perspective really adds value to the full scope of care that a hospice organization can provide, and something that allows the community to give back as well. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Fisher. Our final speaker in the public hearing that signed up is Mr. Jeff Ogden.
I'd just like to repeat what I said earlier. May have jumped the gun, but please consider this. I've been on the private side, commercial, and the nonprofit. I've been in a wheelchair for 47 years. I've had many health obstacles in my life. I've gotten the best care ever since I've been in this county. People, if you got to be in that position I was in, you'd understand. If you were in that position, just please don't make this decision without thinking about it. Just think real hard and long about it. It's something y'all need to really consider, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ogden. At this time, I will make one call to the audience for the public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to speak on the resolution of intent to sell home health and hospice? If you would approach the podium at this time. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing at this time. Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, this item is available for discussion if you wish, but there is no action that is scheduled tonight on this item.
Sherry,
Yes.
Thank you.
you knew I was going to ask something. Stephen had brought up a couple things dealing with the health department is really where it came from. When he's talking about animal control, and he was talking about the stuff that was being done at the health department. We had no control over that, Stephen. I don't know if you remember that or not. Jack and I had no control whatsoever. And if you would share, Sherry, what happened when we got control back?
Yes, sir. So at the time that the animal control stuff happened, animal control was a division of the health department, just as home health and hospice was a division of the health department at the time. And as you've stated, Commissioner, the county had only the authority, the commissioners only had the authority to fund the health department. They had relatively little authority within what happened once the funding was given, because at that time we were not a consolidated county, and the Board of Health basically ran the health department with a director in place. I know that the commissioners and those folks at the time didn't see eye to eye on how to run it. When the commissioners consolidated human services and brought that back under one consolidated director, which I happen to have that role, we were able to make improvements to the program. And again, as you said, when we moved that program under senior services, even before consolidation, we were able to improve quite a bit. We did cut unnecessary spending. We improved our processes based on our Medicare cost report, where we have a specialist that comes in and does the cost report and looks at how the money is being spent. We made lots of improvements, and that's essentially why we were able to turn it around back in 2009 and actually have a few profitable years. As we started to not be profitable again, which if you look back at the reports that were written in 2009, which I wrote as the senior services director, I said while we were turning a profit then, based on what we knew and what we were being told by the experts under a government system, that was not going to last, because with the changes coming, it was going to become more and more difficult to turn a profit in the government sector. And we've seen that as a result of these other organizations who've gotten out of this business. Other counties have stopped providing this service. For Onslow County, when we began to not be able to operate in the black, we did ask for an audit. We had an internal auditor come and audit both the programs and the finances and make suggestions. That was in 2018. And that is when we made the decision to give it another shot at something that might be more beneficial to the program, and moved it back under the Health Department's administration in an effort at that time to make some more changes that might help it to continue or to get back on track, if you will. Unfortunately, we still have not been able to turn the program around and make it profitable. It is a wonderful program. It provides a great service, but it is a service that is available at the same level and the same standard of care from other organizations, including the 14 that are interested in purchasing it at this time. What is happening in Onslow County is that we are taking additional local tax dollars to fund this service. So for the patient, they can get the same care at either organization. The difference is if they get it at our organization, our local taxpayers are supplementing the cost of that in addition to whatever is charged to their individual insurance company.
Thank you, Sherry.
Ms. Slater, if we were to find a buyer that we were comfortable with, how would we help our employees currently in this department transition?
So part of the request for proposal includes that that we are very interested in having our employees be offered continuing employment with the organization, and we ask for the buyers or the potential buyers' plan and their commitment of what they would do. They certainly have the option to lay out their own process and plan. In addition to that, but that would be a bargaining chip as we make a decision, you know, what we would be, or what the board rather would be comfortable allowing as a part of the purchase. In addition to that, in accordance with the county's RIF policy, we have made every effort to connect those folks who wish to stay with county employment to available positions within the county, and they will be offered those positions, again, in accordance with our reduction in force policy.
Ms. Slater, the certificate of need, that will stay in Onslow County, even though it serves outside of Onslow County?
Yes, sir.
But it will remain here?
Yes, sir. A certificate of need is issued by the state based on the number of patients and the capacity for service to those patients in an area. And then the distance is actually, it's a little ambiguous how they say it's 60 miles from the seat of the business. So it's, 60 miles can be very different depending on the type of miles it is, right? 60 miles down the interstate is very different than 60 miles up into down east, by the Outer Banks area. So it's sort of fluid or flexible in that it depends on the area being covered, but it's basically 60 miles from the office of the organization. So where their seat would be in Onslow County, and they have to remain in Onslow County. And so their distance is sort of the outlying areas of Swansboro, the Cape Carteret area that's close to Swansboro, or Beulahville, just outside the county line, into Duplin, that sort of thing is what gets covered by that certificate of need, but it belongs to Onslow County.
I know Mr. Ogden mentioned the quality of care he's been receiving, what he's accustomed to. Will the private companies have the same standards and expectations that the counties are held to? Because we want to make sure that if this goes forward, that he would still receive the same care that he's accustomed to.
Sure. So obviously our staff are fabulous, and they do a wonderful job, and I'm I can't say that enough. All of these agencies, though, are licensed by the Division of Health Service Regulation, so we all have to meet the same licensing requirements. They're all, if they accept Medicare, they're all mandated by the Medicare conditions of participation. And if you don't know kind of what that means, it's like the highest form of interrogation you can possibly submit to and come out alive. When you do, you know that you've made the mark and you're doing great service. So any organization that would accept Medicare would be required to meet the Medicare conditions of participation. There are also, in addition to that, there are accreditation agencies, and most agencies are accredited on top of that, which is just sort of that extra layer that says we try to go above and beyond. So certainly as we consider which agency might be appropriate to buy this organization, we can have conversations about what accreditation they hold and if that is acceptable in addition.
Ms. Slater, you said we were one of 6 counties that still continue to do it this way. Have we talked with healthcare providers in other counties and how their transition was, and if they're satisfied with the level of care and that type of thing? Get a read on how it might work here.
We have talked with several, and some counties sold one part or the other. They sold just their hospice or they sold just their home health. And for every community, that was different and based on what's available in their community. For instance, there may be a community that has a number of home health agencies but doesn't have any hospice, so they wanted to keep their hospice because there wasn't anyone else doing it. For Onslow County, we have, and I'm going to get it backwards, so I'm not going to call it, but we have 5 of one and 4 of the other, and I will get it backwards if I try to nail down which one's home health and which one's hospice. But we have a number of agencies that provide one or both of those services in our community, in addition to keeping this organization in its, potentially in its new form. So it would still continue to be offered here. And I hear the concerns, which are the same concerns we've heard before, that it's a great service and nobody wants it to go away, and we couldn't agree more. We don't want it to go away either. We want it to be in an environment where it can be very successful and still be here for generations to come to serve our community. And that is what we believe the staff are recommending, that this is the direction that will secure that future for the organization. In the general statute, 131E-13, North Carolina General Statute, there's actually language that if the organization goes defunct in the future, it reverts back to the county or to the municipality. So there are protections in place because of the type of, because of your structure, because of your government status, that this is a protected sort of sale, if you will. So there are protections in place going forward also. If things went terribly wrong with the organization, we would have an option to be back involved in it.
Any further?
Yes. Ms. Slater, I appreciate our staff too. I know some of them personally. They're awesome folks, and I'm sure they do a great job. But every client that our home health and hospice serves is one that we're taking away from the other companies who could be serving them. Is that correct?
That's true.
And it sounds to me like just the inherent inefficiencies of government operations hampers us from being able to operate this business successfully or without a loss. Is that?
Yes, sir. If I can provide a very simple example of one of the things, and it's just one that makes it very difficult for us in the state of North Carolina, public health nurses are salaried employees, period. And so for the county to have public health nurses, they're salaried, which makes it very difficult for me when I need them to work 20 extra hours this week, because a salaried employee doesn't get paid overtime. But I need them to work an extra 20 hours to see all the patients, because we can't not see the patients. We can't not make the visits. So they make it, and they just accrue and accrue and accrue. They can never get paid for those extra hours that they work. And in addition to that, our nurses have to work on call because a home health and hospice agency is open 24 hours a day. And so they have to cover on call. Well, we have a relatively small organization, and we have, I believe, 6 nurses in the home health section, which means they're on call a lot. And if you have one vacancy, you're down nearly 20% of your staff with one vacancy. So covering the extra caseload and the extra call nights gets to be quite difficult. When you add holidays into that, you've then again made it even more difficult to keep up. And so we have staff who never get their holidays because they're always having to cover a certain number of visits or the on-call during the holidays, and they don't get paid for overtime, and they work a lot of overtime. And so it is difficult to do the job we have to do and meet the mandates we have to meet under the Medicare conditions and under our licensing conditions, and take care of our staff too. So it's a very difficult business, and just that one thing about how we have to pay our nurses because we fall under that public health nurse designation makes it very, very difficult.
I know when, I know when my wife was working for a private home health agency, some of those nurses were paid by the visit, paid per visit. That's not an option for us, is that correct?
No, sir.
Okay. All right. I don't have anything else.
Any further? We are not going to vote on this tonight. This is just for the process of the public hearing that we were required to have and concerning this. So the ones that thought we were going to vote on it tonight, we're not going to vote on it tonight. We're not going to do anything but have and finish the public hearing. Is there anybody else that we need to?
No, sir, I think we've completed the public hearing. If no one else has any other comments, we can move on to the next item. Would you like to reopen the public hearing? We have one more person who would like to speak.
Is it on the home health and hospice? Yes. Yeah,
Okay. Can I do that? I'm going to reopen the public hearing on the resolution of intent to sell home health and hospice for one speaker.
Thank you, I'm sorry. My name is Carol Hallisey. I live at 1114 Clifton Road. My family's been in this town since 1963. I moved back here back in 2010 and have been now been privileged to work at as a director at Onslow Home Health and Hospice since last year, April of last year. My background is nursing for a long time. I don't like to tell people my age, but I've been graduate from East Carolina and back in 1980. I had always liked the home health piece of my education, but my experience really has been in the inpatient side. I've been successful going around the whole country, creating emergency rooms that have gone from failure to success, and that's what I was hoping to be able to do here at this community. And, you know, time is always the biggest problem. The timing is always, you know, are we going to be able to make it or are we not going to be able to make it? I want to just say that the staff that I've worked with all my years of experience, has been really an exceptional staff. I don't always say that, but they have a great team. And I just want to make sure that if we do sell this agency, that we do look at the private sector that we are choosing. I have a lot of elder family members. I've used many care agencies, even in Virginia with my sister who was dying of cancer. And I can tell you, you really want to make sure that we have the warmth and the heart that's in it. And that's what I see in my agency right now, this group that's working with us. They have a real strong heart. And what concerns me is that I've had agencies come in and out for my parents, and I've walked away shaking my head. I'm a very strong clinical nurse. That's why I think I've been successful. And when I have to shake my head and say that that nurse really had no clue what they were doing or had no heart in it to move forward to take care of the patients the way they should, it winds up costing. It costs in other ways, such as someone winds up back in hospital, someone winds up in a nursing home, those type of things. And I am concerned with some of the agencies that are local. I've dealt with them personally in regards to my own family members' care. And I just want to make sure that the decision that gets made is a decision that's really has a little heart in it, and it's somebody that's going to not always look at the bottom line. We have to have a bottom line. I understand that. Being a successful business nursing woman in the past, I've always been able to move things forward. You know, we've had a short period. I've had a short period with this agency to be able to turn around. And with the COVID and other things that come along, such as hurricanes, sometimes we have to stop taking patients, or we don't have enough staff on. So I understand all the dilemmas that have been going through. But I am asking that we do look at any agency you do choose, that it really isn't one that's been around for a while, that comes in and sends different nurses in every week. You know, to have a nurse tell me that the agency they worked at, they never saw a patient twice, always bothers me, because there's no continuity of care. And that's what we need here, and I think that's what you're hearing from our patients, is the continuity of care. And I just wanted to give a little bit of feedback that you do have a really good agency. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, I will again close the public hearing, and hopefully that will be the end of our public hearing for this evening. Mr. Chairman, I think we can move on.
Okay, we'll move on to item 6. That's our Board of Elections Director, Jason Dedman.
Good evening, Chairman, Vice Chairman, Mrs. Russell. Thank you for having me this evening. I am here before you today to consider voting on new voting equipment for the Board of Elections. We last got election equipment in 2006, and the election equipment is in need of replacement. Some of our equipment, we utilize tape and binder clips, such as smaller ones like these, to make them operate currently. We had 6 failures right before the March election. In August 23rd of 2019, voter equipment was approved by the State Board of Elections. On December 20th, 2019, my board voted unanimously 5-0. That's 3 Republicans and 3 Democrats and 2 Republicans, all agreeing on an issue, 5-0, to vote to select Hart as our vendor. Hart is located in Austin, Texas. Their phone support is also from there. It's manufactured there. It's one of the 3 largest voting equipment companies in the country. They have 700 customers in 19 states, including 2 statewide customers in Oklahoma and Hawaii. They've been in business over 100 years. Their system is called Verity. Verity is an all-new voting system, not an old system retooled. They were first federally EAC certified in the spring of 2015. And the way it works at the state level is the state had to approve the 3 voting companies. The state had to approve the pricing. So there is no mystery in pricing, no matter what you have heard here tonight. It is set forth by the state, and that is the pricing that everyone gets. My board selected Hart because they are not in favor of the smaller ballots that go on the, the ADA machine. On the ADA machine, the ballots that are for a different company, they are not the same size as the regular ballot. The ballots for Hart are the same size And just want to let you know that in March, if you voted at the Commons on Election Day, you actually voted on new equipment. You just didn't know it because you would have voted with a square instead of an oval. That's all it is. So it's still a paper ballot. And it's just bringing us to the next generation of equipment that'll hold us through for hopefully another 10 or 15 years. And I would ask respectfully that you consider this and authorize the chairman to sign the purchase contract if you see fit.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. I'll open up for discussion or questions for Mr. Dedman.
Mr. Dedman, the question was asked, who will print ballots and that type of thing? Is that going to be problematic, or how will that take place?
That's the beautiful thing about Hart. We can use whoever we want to print our ballots, sir.
Any further?
Mr. Chairman, I've struggled with this decision. We've had to make a lot of concessions during this COVID-19. We've delayed capital purchases. We've delayed our employee raises. We've frozen our hiring, and it was hard for me to justify in my mind spending more money than what might be absolutely necessary. I've talked to several of the Board of Elections members and Mr. Dedman several times. I've come to the conclusion that we've got to defer to the Board of Elections to do what's best for our voting. We've got to make sure that we have voting equipment that's going to operate properly for this coming election. And even though I hate to spend more money than maybe we could get away with, I'm convinced that the system that's offered by Hart is more up to date and better for Onslow County. So,
If I could, if you don't mind.
Any further? Any questions for him?
I just have one. Someone told me earlier tonight that be a little vocal, ask questions, say a little bit more. Number one is having a Board of Elections is important because those are the folks that are reading everything, taking in everything, making good decisions, and you got a pretty balanced board working with you. So you've got 5 folks on different ends of the aisle agreeing with each other. Now that's something that's pretty much unheard of in the time where we're at right now. But I am kind of impressed at folks coming down from Wake County to check on little old Onslow because of what we're doing. But the statement was made is, don't know how you got that discount. Mr. Dedman, I just got to ask you, is Onslow County getting you getting a kickback or somebody getting a kickback because they went with Hart? Because I'm pretty sure that's what the insinuation was.
I don't think I would do well in prison, sir.
Thank you very much.
I would never do anything illegal.
Yes, sir. I just wanted you to be able to verify that for all of us. Not that I was thinking you were. I appreciate that and appreciate what you brought here tonight.
And just to respond to that, apples to apples, if you were to look at their quote and add in ballot on demand, it's the same price, just new equipment or old equipment.
Right. So is that other one older?
That particular machine, I don't like to single anything out.
Right.
Or, it sounded like a business sale earlier. I didn't think that was allowed, but it's okay. Yes, that's like 08 technology.
You just keyed on something that was bothering me, and first let me ask this, Royce. You're indicating that you want to delay the purchase.
No.
Okay. I want to key on what you said because I think we had a demonstration of this before. We went over this before in the workshops and stuff like that. And as far as I'm concerned, this is a Board of Commissioners meeting, and I feel just like you as a sales pitch. And I don't know why. Some people came from Wake Forest, and I'm just being honest. That's just the way I am. It felt like a sales pitch, a business pitch, and I'm not in the mood for a business pitch. I'm here to conduct business for the county. And what you said, Tim, about 5 people agreeing across the board, and we trust you because you're in charge of our Board of Elections here. I really don't see the issue here. I just don't. I mean, but yeah, I just had to reiterate that. I felt like I was being pitched for a business proposition, and quite frankly, I don't like that. That's not what I'm here for.
You had to go through that.
But thank you.
It's kind of, I don't know if we're beating a dead horse here, but
I think it's pretty dead.
it is. It's struggling.
Mr. Chair, call the question.
Knew it was coming.
We have a motion and a second, and I don't think you would know how to make license plates either.
I have sleep apnea, rods and screws in my back. I don't want to go to prison.
Thank you, Mr. Dedman.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion or questions?
I can't.
All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move on now to section 6B. Mr. Norm Bryson from Emergency Management.
Good evening, Chairman, Vice Chairman, and Commissioners. This item that you have before you is a supplemental to the Emergency Management Planning Grant. If approved, this is for $12,695 worth of funds that we would use for the development of an emergency public information plan and overhaul our vulnerability population registry. We're respectfully requesting that the Board of Commissioners consider approval of the Emergency Management Planning Grant Supplement Grant. If approved, we also respectfully request that the Commissioners authorize the County Manager to sign the Memorandum of Agreement with North Carolina Emergency Management.
Motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion for the grant signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Item B.C. Is Jessica Roberts from our Finance Department. CARES Act grant.
Good evening, Chairman, Commissioners. The federal government, in reaction to coronavirus, COVID-19, has implemented the Coronavirus Aid Relief and Economic Security Act. The county applied for and was awarded $3.4 million for related efforts in preparation, response, and recovery. A grant ordinance has been prepared to account for expenses outside of salaries in accordance with North Carolina general statutes and the local government commission guidance. And we're respectfully requesting approval of the ordinance and authorizing the chairman to sign the ordinance.
Need a motion?
Motion.
A motion and a
Second.
second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion for the CARES grant signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Nutrition grant, Mr. Clay Calhoun, Senior Services Director. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Chairman, Vice Chairman, Commissioners. Thank you. The nutrition contract is with Gibbs Management Incorporated. It allows senior service to continue our congregate and home-delivered meals. This contract provides delivery of prepackaged food for home-delivered meals, as well as meals for all the 5 sites in Onslow County. The clients are assessed on an annual basis, and the guidelines under D, Division of Aging and Adult Services. In 2017, Onslow County solicited bids for this contract. Gibbs was the lowest bid at that time. The staff recommend an extension of the 1 more year for this contract for fiscal year 2021. This service is reimbursed through the Home and Community Care Block Grant. I'm available for any questions. I respectfully request that the board consider approval of the contract to Gibbs Management Services Incorporated and authorize the chairman to execute the contract documents.
Your motion, gentlemen?
Motion to approve.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, motion carries.
Thank you,
I
sir.
think Section E is yours also for a
Yes,
block
sir.
grant. Mr.
I'm here
Calhoun.
for a little while, sir. The next one is the Home Community Care Block Grant. The Onslow County receives this grant annually from the Area Aging Eastern Carolina Council. It provides funding for in-home services, adult daycare, transportation, and nutrition services. This year's grant is $675,272. The local match is $75,030. It will be met with our approved budget. No additional budgets will be required. Again, I stand ready to answer any questions. Also, I request that the Onslow County Board of Commissioners consider the approval of the contract to the Area Agency on Aging, Eastern Carolina Council, and authorize the chairman to execute the contract documents.
Need a motion, gentlemen?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries.
Thank you, sir.
Section F, Mr. Clay Calhoun.
Yes, sir. This is the contract with Onslow County and Onslow United Transit System Incorporated. This will facilitate transportation services for our elderly clients age 60 and over. Clients are accessed for eligibility on an annual basis under the guidelines of the Division of Aging and Adult Services. ALTS provides handicap accessible transportation to medical appointments, to the nutrition sites around the county. These services are reimbursable under Home and Community Care Block Grant. Again, I stand ready to answer any questions. Respectfully request that the Board of Commissioners consider approval of the contract with ALTS and authorize the chairman of the board to execute contract documents.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Thank you, sir. Section G, Memorandum of Agreement for the Dix Crisis Intervention Center. Assistant Manager Sari Slater will be presenting this item.
Good evening again, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Before you this evening, I have the updated memorandum of agreement with our community partners on the Dix Crisis Intervention Center. This is simply an update to the agreement that the board signed 2 years ago to institute or to create the oversight committee for the Crisis Center. This is an update only to the dates and basically leaves the existence of the oversight committee the same, as well as the partners at their most recent oversight committee meeting agreed to continue the partnership as it currently exists. As of their May meeting, the statistics for the Crisis Center, which only opened at the end of July last year, had already served over 1,020 patients in those, I suppose, 10 months from opening until that May meeting. So I think that's over 1,000 souls that you've helped and been a part of having treatment for in our community. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Let me just say something about this. For all you out there that are in the audience, and for the people that are on G10 or Facebook or whatever social media you're at, this is how to do something for Onslow County. This is the example of how to get things done in Onslow County. We have several counties that are participating to include hospitals, i.e. OMH, Carteret Health. We have commissioners from different counties interacting with each other. We have city officials involved in this. I can't say it enough. This is exactly how it's supposed to be done. I can't say enough about Grace Dolphy out down there at Dix Crisis Center. She is a director of the Dix Crisis Center. If you ever talk with her and just have a conversation with her, you'll see how genuine she is and how much she cares. Dix Crisis Center has done a tremendous job since it opened a year ago, just about. Am I correct?
No, in July, yes, sir.
And the staff here at Onslow County, to include Sherry, Sharon, all of them worked hard to get this up and running. I commend you for it. I'm actually proud of this. And definitely this MOA is going to set the tone for the rest of the state, in my opinion. And we do have other counties looking at Onslow County in terms of how to shape their programs down there. So big kudos to you guys. I love it. And I wish the Dix Crisis Center tremendous success.
Thank you, sir.
Any further? Have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Don't go nowhere, Sherry.
Yes,
All
sir.
opposed?
How about July 11th? Because I want to challenge all these commissioners sitting up here, because I've already started.
Yes, sir. So July 11th, Dick's Crisis Center is having their second annual clothing drive.
That's right.
So a lot of times when folks come into the crisis center, they come in via an ambulance or law enforcement delivery, and they may have been picked up off the street and frequently don't have even clean clothes for that night, never mind perhaps clothes to go home in or go to the facility that they might be transferred to for a long-term treatment option. So the crisis center knows that one of the first things we have to do, right, according to our hierarchy of needs, is take care of feeding them and clothing them. And they have shelter by virtue of being at the crisis center. So they try to keep clothes on hand so that when someone comes in and they truly don't have anything but what they walked in with, they can get them clean clothes, clothes that make them feel like the person they're trying to be a little bit better than where they were before they walked in the door. So they do that clothing drive so that they can keep things on hand. And I know Vice Chairman I'm sure his wife is thrilled to hear this now if she's watching, that he's going to be cleaning out the closets and getting some stuff together for that clothing drive. So I think he may have a little challenge for the rest of you.
I've already got 4 bags all ready to go.
I got 2 big boxes. I got 2 big boxes yesterday.
Well, we can weigh it by the pound or we can count items. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on now to Section H, and I'll turn that over to our legal department, Mr. Brett DeSelms, to present that and for a possible action by the board.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. This board adopted a state of emergency, although you didn't impose any restrictions, and we have not imposed any restrictions. All those restrictions are being implemented by the governor, as everybody's aware. The state of emergency still exists, so we wanted to bring this before the board to determine whether you wanted that state of emergency to continue to exist, or if you wanted to rescind it, and it's open for commissioner discussion.
Motion to terminate the state of emergency.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion from the board or any questions from legal or our county manager?
Yeah, I got a couple things. I'm not so sure that I'm on board with this 100%. I've discussed this with Sharon, and I'll tell you my reasons, and then you can vote your conscience. But whether there's funding or there's not funding down the road, the state of emergency allows us to get certain funding, and I don't want to leave any stone unturned when it comes to the citizens and possible funding. Now, I've heard people say we've already had our FEMA reimbursements, and we've got other things to do. But also, I think it sets, in my opinion, the precedent that everything is okay, and it's still not okay. And that's what I'm afraid of, because we have spikes, and I know people will say, well, it's because we're testing more, and we have spikes in the positive, et cetera, but that's just my viewpoint. Do I want things opened up? Absolutely I do, but I want things opened up cautiously. We just recently had a death. People say it's only 3 people that have died. That's 3 people too many, as far as I'm concerned, in Onslow County. So that's where my viewpoint is. And, we're at a status quo right now. It's not going to do us any harm to keep the state of emergency. And to be quite honest with you, I don't trust Governor Cooper either if we decide to lift the state of emergency and he gets upset, with Onslow County. That's the way I view it, and I'm just being real. So I don't think we should just go ahead and arbitrarily lift this state of emergency, in my opinion, at this particular time, when the state is still in a state of emergency. And, when we have potential funding, like the CARES Act, we had the CARES Act come down with funding for COVID-19, we don't know what's down the road. Now, I know that it's hurricane season. We're in hurricane season, and we may have to declare another state of emergency if by some chance, and hopefully we won't, but by some chance we have a major hurricane coming right down our throats like we did last year. But if we're at a status quo, it's not hurting anything to stay in a state of emergency, in my opinion. That's my opinion. And I just can't see myself voting to lift the status quo when the whole state, like I said, is still in the state of emergency, and I don't want to take the chance of losing any potential funding that we can't foresee right now at this moment, because we don't know what's coming down the pipe. I didn't even know about the CARES Act. Okay, it was approved federally, I get that, it came through the state, and we got money. What did we get, $3 million? Okay, that's $3 million that can go to the residents of Onslow County that we could use to pay for salary, compensation, et cetera. So many may disagree with me. Many are tired of it, of our lockdown. But what if, I'm looking at the news now, I'm looking at the secretary of the Human Health Services for North Carolina talking about a possible shutdown again. Okay? To be honest with you, I don't know where Cooper's going with any of this. He's unpredictable, and that's what bothers me. And I don't want us as a county to shoot ourselves in the foot before we have sound answers and sound direction as to where we're going with this whole thing. So you can vote your conscience. I understand the arguments, but I'm just not too keen on lifting that right now.
In the past, we've always relied on the UNC School of Government for advice about where funding might come from or decisions about funding, and the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners. Both of those have agreed that a state of emergency is not contingent. We don't have to have that in order to receive funding, so I'm comfortable with that. Also, a state of emergency, and it's not the role of government to protect us from risk. People know the steps that they need to take to maintain their safety, to social distance, and to do those things. And it is it's their decision to make as the liberty that they have as an American citizen. So, I don't have a problem with that. There will be more cases. There's no way that we won't control that, even if we do have a state of emergency. There will continue to be more COVID cases. But people will have that freedom to make that decision about how they know what the steps are to avoid, to reduce the possibility of that occurring. And so I'm comfortable with that being a decision.
Mr. Chairman. Sorry. Mr. Chairman, I'd argue that this a perpetual state of emergency is just not sustainable. I observed what happened the last time we introduced a state of emergency. It took a couple of weeks that people kind of stayed home and were afraid, and then after a few weeks you started seeing more and more cars on the road, and I would argue that now there's no recognition of the state of emergency at all. So by sustaining a perpetual state of emergency, it loses its significance. If we had canceled this thing a couple of weeks after we started it, and then, or if we could have, if the governor had allowed us to get back into business months ago, and we had maintained our economy for the last 2 months or so, and then we come to a point in the future where we have a significant increase and there's an obvious need in Onslow County to initiate a state of emergency, then I would argue that people would be receptive to that idea, that if we went to them and we said, hey, now we have an emergency in Onslow County, we need to go stay home for a couple of weeks until we get through this thing. At the point it is now, I think if we have a spike and we tell people that they need to stay at home, they're going to laugh at us and tell us that they stayed home for 3 months and they're not going to do it anymore. So I think that it's time to end this state of emergency. And again, if we have to revisit it at some point in the future, then maybe we'll have to do that. But that would be my opinion.
And I understand everybody's opinion here, and if you bear with me, Vice Chair and Chair, just for a second. In the grand scheme of things, if Governor Cooper would have done it the right way the first time and told us all to shut down for 2 weeks, we wouldn't be here now discussing this, in my opinion. But he didn't. And that's the fear that I have, because I'm looking out for the folks of Onslow County, and I'm looking out for funding in terms of what may come down the pipe. It's so unpredictable right now. Staying in a state of emergency does not hurt our particular status right now with the state. That's what I'm saying, and that's why if it's status quo, leave it until we see more guidance down the road and see what direction our governor takes. That's my point.
Any further?
I would say I think there are good arguments on both sides of this, and I don't think that there's an obviously right answer. I think what was compelling to me at the end of the day is that the purpose of enacting a state of emergency is that statute then gives us emergency powers that we can use to be flexible and respond in an extraordinary way to an extraordinary situation. We to date have not
used any of those powers that the statute gives us, and we have no intention or plan to down the road. And I think ultimately, that's why I'll vote to end this state of emergency today. And if the facts on the ground change and we need to come back and look at that again and potentially utilize those emergency powers, then we have the ability to do that as things change. But that's why I'll vote that way.
I think that's important to note is if things change, we can always go back into it.
I will call for a vote. All in favor of the motion to disband the state of emergency, terminate it, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
We have 6-1. There, we got that. You got that record there, Madam Clerk? Thank you. We'll move on to 7. Ms. Russell, we have appointments.
We have two appointments to one board this evening, the Jacksonville Onslow Sports Commission. The board secretary to the Jacksonville Onslow Sports Commission's Board of Directors provided a letter to staff requesting that the Board of Commissioners consider appointments to the Jacksonville Onslow Sports Commission's Board of Directors. The Sports Commission advertised for nominations to the Board of Directors and the advisory group. No nominations were received. The advertisements were run a second time, and again, no nominations were received. After careful consideration, the Jacksonville Onslow Sports Commission Board of Directors nominated by unanimous vote at their May 28, 2020 meeting incumbent Steve Goodson for seat C and Mary Thomas for seat D to be reappointed to serve a 3-year term expiring June 30th, 2023. The applications are on file and have been certified by the clerk's office. We respectfully ask you to consider reappointment of Steve Goodson for seat C and Mary Thomas for seat D for this 3-year term, which will expire June 30th, 2023.
Motion to approve.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion for the appointments, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We'll move to item 8, which was nothing moved to the consent agenda to item 8. So now we're at item 9, our manager's comment, Ms. Sharon Russell.
Thank you so much, Chairman Bright and Commissioners, and we appreciate all that each of you have done during these difficult times. I wanted to give a COVID-19 update for today. We did receive 2 new positive cases today of COVID-19. That brings us to 164 positive cases in Onslow County, including our base and all our municipalities. We have 4,504 negative tests. We have 37 pending tests. And of those positive tests that we have had, we unfortunately have had 3 fatalities, and 135 people as of this evening have been cleared. We will continue to take precautions to try to fight COVID-19. I wanted to also announce that on June 20th, Onslow County Health Department and Goshen Medical are working together to have a drive-through COVID-19 testing that is open and available for citizens. It will be from 9 until 1. It's a drive-through event. It's at 612 College Street, which is our CHS building. If you would like to register, the number is 910-787-1100. Another announcement is about the census. The census got booted off track a little by COVID-19. Right now, we still have about 48% of Onslow County residents who have not responded. If that continues, our county stands to lose $6.5 million in funding. Not just Onslow County, but many of our county functions, transportation, school funding, many important funds that come into different agencies in Onslow County. It is really important for residents to go online and answer the census. And finally, Coastal Carolina Community College is expanding business services and can offer counseling to small businesses that have been impacted by COVID-19. You can go to the Coastal Carolina website to sign up for that counseling. And thank you again for everything you let me do for you and to all of our staff.
Thank you. Did want to mention that we're not going to have the first July meeting. That's been canceled. Our next meeting is what date?
That is correct. So our first meeting in July has been put off because of the July 4th holiday that most people want to celebrate with their families. And we will be having a meeting, I believe it's on July 20th. It's the 20th, yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll move now to commissioner comments. I'm going to do it a little different this time. I'm going to start down at the end with Mr. William Shanahan.
It's been a long night and a fun night. Thank you guys for coming and having a good time with me this evening. I also want to thank the Sheriff's Office who's here providing security for us. We appreciate your services and that you join us regularly at these meetings, and appreciate all that you do. And so with that, I hope that the rest of my colleagues here will let you all get home very soon.
We shall see.
Thank you, sir.
Is that a hint?
Commissioner Price.
To the one on the end down here.
Commissioner Price.
I'd like to thank all those who spoke this evening, especially about the home health and hospice. Having had two parents who had gone through a debilitating illness and were provided service through home health and hospice, I understand that those are some awesome people that work in those agencies, and we really appreciate the work that they do. And we have an obligation to the taxpayers as well, and so that's something we have to weigh and look at. But I appreciate everyone coming out this evening, and have a great week.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Knapp?
John Michael Moore, where you at? First of all, let me tell you, thank you very much for what you said tonight. That was really moving. I know it was from the heart. I know you always speak from the heart. And I really do appreciate you coming up here and saying what you did. So that meant a lot. I just want to touch on one thing real quick, and I'm going to try to make this very quick. There's been a lot of negativity in the press lately about the thin blue line, and it does bother me. As a retired federal agent after 27 years, the thin blue line meant everything to me, but it's the real meaning of the thin blue line, and Paul can tell you, and so can Jack, and attest to what it means when we talk about the thin blue line. It's about cops who are honest, cops who believe in equality, cops who do things the right way, and when we have bad cops out there, that tarnishes us, all of us, retired, active, it doesn't matter. It puts all the burden right on our shoulders, and if you don't understand that, then you haven't been out there to know what it feels like. These cops that go out that believe in the thin blue line, which believes in equality, which believes in doing things the right way and believes in doing things correctly, these people go out every day not knowing if they're coming home. There have been many times when I worked narcotics, I didn't know if I was coming home, and I'm sure you can attest to that, Paul. In fact, you were wounded, in fact. But we don't do it because we have some authority complex. We do it because we care. We do it because we want to serve. We do it because it's a passion. It's a profession for a lot of us. But we also know that there's the other side of that, too. There are people out there that need to be treated fairly. And when we recognize somebody from one of our own cross that thin line and tarnish that thin line, that person doesn't belong to be behind that thin line anymore, because nobody hates a bad cop worse than a good cop. And in 27 years of my career, I've seen several of them, and several of them have been fired within my own agency. They shouldn't have been cops. So I just want people to understand that we need to open our lines of communication with everybody across the board. We need to sit down and have open discourse. It doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter where you're from, it doesn't matter what political affiliation, et cetera. That just does not matter. It matters that we all get along and understand each other's cultural differences. We understand each other's differences, period. And we understand each other's backgrounds. That's what real cops do. That's what real cops try to do. They try to know and integrate themselves with their community. It doesn't matter who you are. And it does. It hurts me because I take offense to when bad cops step over that thin blue line and do something really stupid or commit a murder before us, and then it tarnishes all of us. And it makes our job that much harder. And then I pray for those guys that go out because they have families as well. So just keep that in mind, because there have been some talk that the thin blue line has been classified as a gang. I work MAGTAFs, or Multi-Agency Gang Task Force. We're not a gang, just like the Marine Corps is not a gang. We're a profession of professionals who believe in what we do, and we believe in upholding justice equally across the board to everybody. And we need to start understanding that as far as we're concerned across the community, and we need to work together with whatever group together. And I said that again, together, so that we can defeat whatever stereotype there is out there and just move on as a society and community. So I'd ask all of you all to pray for everybody, not just the Thin Blue Line, but all the communities out there, that we get together, we work together, we understand each other, and we just keep moving forward. And that's all I wanted to say about that. So I appreciate everybody coming out here tonight. God bless, and we'll see you at the next meeting.
Thank you. Commissioner Bennett?
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not going to go on a rant tonight. I do want to thank everybody who came to speak, and I just want to say that we have struggled over this home health and hospice for several years now, and it's a difficult decision, but it had to be made. I do want to end with some good news. First of all, the Salvation Army, in partnership with the USDA, is receiving 250 fruit and vegetable boxes each week that we can give away to people who need food. There are no forms, no paperwork, no questions. You can go to the Salvation Army office at 461 Center Street between 1 and 3 any weekday and pick up a box of fruit and vegetables. And I got one last week there. A lot of really good stuff in there. So I'd encourage you. Right now, they don't have enough people coming to get them. So they're available to anybody who wants one. Also, I can announce tonight that our Jacksonville-Onslow Economic Development Partnership, working in concert with the Onslow County Commissioners, the town of Holly Ridge, and in Davis Industrial Park, is able to announce that 3 new industries are coming to Onslow County in the near future that'll bring around 200 new jobs to Onslow County. So we're moving forward and progressing in Onslow County despite all the setbacks with coronavirus and everything else. And I hope y'all have a great night. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Foster?
Just a couple of thank yous that goes out. I spent a Saturday afternoon at the Onslow County landfill, and I think I was there with about 50% of Onslow County, and a big hats off to the men and women that work at the Onslow County landfill, because they have a task in front of them that is huge, but they do a heck of a job of getting people in and out of there. So great job out there, because that's not an easy Saturday for your folks that are out there. Same goes out to mosquito control. Everybody thought it was killer hornets until they visited eastern North Carolina and they realized they're just our mosquitoes that exited our borders and went somewhere else. So we appreciate vector control and what you're doing out there to take care of everything, Tony. That's good stuff. And a big shout out to Onslow County Schools, the 2020 graduates. They didn't get to do what they wanted to do, but they're all walking across that stage and headed into the future. So as one of those folks that work in the school system, folks, it's been a unbelievable task to do what we've done. And I don't want to speak on anything the Board of Education will speak on, but what they've accomplished in this spring of 2020 has been unbelievable. But with that being said, I want Governor Cooper to understand one thing. State of emergency is the least of our concern. If he don't figure out a way to get those kids back in those classrooms come the fall of 2020, state of emergency is going to be the least of our concern. It's going to be a national emergency, and we better figure out a way to get them in there. That's Tim Foster speaking, and I appreciate you listening. Parks and Rec, thank you. We love Tyresa. She's a UNCG intern, but she's a Southwest Stallion graduate as well, so we love Tyresa. And John Michael, thank you, sir, and we appreciate everybody that come out here. What I don't appreciate is somebody walking into Onslow County Commissioner's chambers and making insinuations and allegations against our Board of Elections. That's beyond what should be acceptable. And it must be something more involved to walk into our chambers to accuse our people of doing something wrong. If you're coming from Wake County to talk to us about a daggone decision we made, then it must be something you're worried about the dollars in your back pocket, and they made the best decision for Onslow County. So as far as I'm concerned, they can stay west of 95. But that's Onslow County. They're doing a heck of a job. And the last thing I'm going to say is a big shout out to Onslow County, our citizens. The right to protest is, by gosh, a right to protest. They did it the right way. There's changes that need to be made to move in the future. You can't change the past. You got to live in the present so you can make difference in the future. And a shout out to the Onslow County Sheriff's Office and the Jacksonville Police Department for the job that they've done as well. Thank you for being here tonight, and I'm finished.
Do you have anything else? Are you done? Are you done?
Is
Well,
John
you know what?
Is John Michael Moore still around? Is he over there?
He's over there. He's over there. He's
Tom,
over
why don't
there.
you get someplace where we can see you?
Vice Chairman, your turn.
Thank you. Is he coming around where I can see him? He ain't gonna come, is he?
He's staying off camera.
He's coming.
Is he coming? How do I thank you when you're way around the corner? John Michael Moore has been around myself and Jack and several of us on this board for a long time. He's been a big supporter of these commissioners. He works hard for us. He sees what we do on every day that we do things. And John, thank you so much for that. I mean, you almost had me choked up a while ago, some of you talking. Parks and Rec, thank you for what you do. We've got great employees. You've heard me say this many, many times. Sherry Slater, an outstanding presentation. It was tough for me because you know that way back when I stood strong for home health and hospice, and I know now we have to look at it in a different light. It makes it tough for me to do that. And Sharon and the staff and our attorney and everybody and the sheriff, thank you so much for what you do. And one of the things you heard Robin Knapp talk quite a bit a while ago about law enforcement, we are constantly doing training. Today I started an FSST training. I started officer survival training today. And we're running a detention officer and sheriff. We graduate them on Friday at 11:30. So there's 12 of them in that class. We will graduate 10. I can explain the other two to you later on. But we have 10 that will graduate, but that'll be about 11:30. But we're constantly doing training, constantly. I work at the college. I've been doing training over there since 1990, and we'll continue to do it. And de-escalation is on our back of our burner. We're constantly teaching de-escalation, and we're constantly doing something to make sure our officers are properly trained for the streets. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you, sir. I want to thank everybody for coming tonight, especially the speakers. John, as always, you do a good job, but you also, if you see something wrong, you also speak up about that, and I appreciate that too, and being honest about it. We had some good presenters tonight. Actually had a good meeting. It was sort of long, but somebody is saying that I had a birthday, and I need to find out if I do or not.
Oh, here we go.
If I do,
Pie with the Slim Jim.
and if it is my birthday, I want to celebrate it. But anyway, I will yield to the board, and I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second. Birthday.
All in favor? Aye. We adjourn. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.